All right, we will get started. So, hello everyone, I'm Parthivi Das, Executive Director of C2HR, and I'm thrilled to welcome you to today's installment for our HR Learning Series. C2HR is able to offer free, quality educational programs for our members, like today's webinar, thanks to the generous support of our 2023 sponsors, including Deloitte. We sincerely appreciate your support. Today's topic is focused on the dynamics of human capital. Deloitte surveyed more than 10,000 business and HR leaders across every industry to identify how the workplace ecosystem is changing. We would like today's webinar to be interactive and invite you to post your questions and comments in the chat box throughout the discussion. SHRM has approved this webinar for 1 CE credit, and the credit code will be emailed to you after this event. Today's featured speakers are Lauren Kelly and Abel Sun, who are both senior managers for human capital at Deloitte. Lauren and Abel, we can't thank you enough for sharing your insight with us today. I will now turn it over to Abel.
Hi everyone. Thanks for having me. Want to first start off by thanking C2HR for the opportunity to present on Deloitte's Human Capital Trends Report. Just by way of a quick introduction, I'm a senior manager at Deloitte, and I focus on driving HR and workforce solutions for organizations in media, sports, and entertainment. In just a moment, I'll let my colleague Lauren here take you through the trends. But before I do that, I wanted to take a moment to share a little bit about Deloitte and the work that we do at the intersection of human capital and the telecommunications, media, and entertainment sector. Deloitte, as I believe many of you know, is a global professional services firm that provides a wide range of services across audit, tax, and consulting. We help our clients evaluate and solve more complex organizational issues, develop solutions to some of the world's most pressing challenges, and implement practical and hopefully sustainable solutions. At the intersection of this industry with human capital, we're all about making work better for humans and humans better at work. We help our clients create adaptable organizations. We help comprise a workforce that drives productivity and value, and sort of help to reimagine work to empower people to find purpose and the impact that they bring, and to elevate HR functions. In addition to our client service delivery work, we also invest heavily in human capital research and eminence to sort of forecast the trends and the market disruptions in HR, and to really understand how they might impact organizations at large. And so I'm glad to be able to share sort of a very core piece of our research with you. And with that, I will now pass it on to my colleague, Lauren.
Thanks so much, Abel. It's an honor and a pleasure to be here and get to talk to you about the trends. So thank you for joining. I'm Lauren Kelly, a senior manager at Deloitte. By day, I specialize in transformational strategic change management programs for our TMT clients. And I also have the pleasure of authoring the TMT version of the Human Capital Trends Report, which I will take you through today. So Deloitte's Human Capital Trends Report has been published since 2011, actually, and represents the largest longitudinal study of HR talents and related technology topics that has ever been conducted. This year's Global Human Capital Trends Report is about introducing a new set of fundamentals for a boundaryless world, and it looks to address some of the key shifts that have transformed the world of work in the last few years. Some of these shifts would be from employees to workforce ecosystems. For example, 46% of respondents to the 2023 survey said that they couldn't find the skills needed to meet current business needs within their internal talent pools. A shift from automation to augmentation, 42% of business leaders said that over the next 2 to 4 years, technology will help them drive better organizational outcomes. And from productivity to human performance, 41% of respondents expect that over the next 2 to 4 years, they'll leverage technology or even AI, to create opportunities for humans to use more human capabilities like creativity and empathy. As Daz mentioned, we surveyed over 10,000 professionals across global business and HR organizations. They came from 105 countries, and we wanted to hear from real people like yourselves. What is top of mind when it comes to work, the workforce, and the workplace? Around 23% of those surveyed were board and C-suite members. And the survey data was also complemented by interviews with leaders in various industries to provide a truly global and cross-industry representation of these trends. What are some of the themes that we found? Well, the title of this year's report is New Fundamentals for a Boundaryless World. For the past century, we have assumed that work is fixed and repeatable, that it can be organized into discrete tasks and grouped into well-defined jobs. But in recent years, those models have been challenged. The implication is that organizations are looking at a new landscape where they lose some traditional boundaries. They're able to experiment, pilot, and innovate. And similarly for workers, the rules of engagement within organizations are shifting, opening doors for greater and more meaningful collaboration and co-creation within the organization. The Global Human Capital Trends Report breaks this down into 3 categories with 3 distinct trends. If you don't mind going back a slide or 2. There we are. There we go. These are the 10 trends, and they are broken into 3 categories, with the 10th trend is around leadership. So if we think about thinking like a researcher, we have navigating the end of jobs, where skills replace jobs is the focal point for matching workers with work. Powering human impact with technology, which would be how organizations can use technology to facilitate human-to-human collaboration and innovation. Activating the future of the workplace. This is how the workplace evolves to be an input into the work itself. Second is charting a path, which would be co-creating the relationship. This is where organizations and workers need to learn to navigate this new world together, co-creating some of the new rules, new boundaries, and a new relationship. And that would include negotiating worker data, harnessing worker agency, and unlocking the workforce ecosystem, which we'll talk about in a bit. And that is removing traditional employment distinctions and unlocking access to a true workforce ecosystem, skills and worker potential. And then the third category would be designing for impact, prioritizing human outcomes. This is where organizations should create impact not only for their business and their workers, but for their shareholders and for a broader society as well. This includes taking bold action for equitable outcomes, which would include DEI, advancing the human element of sustainability, and elevating the focus on human risk. And we talked a little, I mentioned before, the 10th trend is leading in a boundaryless world, which involves employing new leadership capabilities to mobilize workers and achieve new outcomes. The boundaryless world is, it's a workplace that's not defined necessarily by jobs, and the workplace isn't a specific physical place, and many workers aren't traditional employees. TMT, which stands for Technology, Media, and Telecom organizations who partner with workers and experiment with what's possible, will create a sustainable work model and elevated outcomes, making work better for humans and humans better for work. So next, let's talk a little bit about what these 10 trends mean for TMT. So we took the overall data of 10,000 and then we broke it apart to look specifically at the 912 TMT professionals who responded to the survey. And they come from 65 countries. And what's top of mind for them? So respondents, here's some of the demographics that you'll see in terms of the respondents on the prior slide, please. There we go. We're breaking down the TMT demographics specifically here. 22 are board and C-suite members, 57 VPs, directors, or managers, wide variety of org sizes, representation from all 3 regions, and there's about an 80-20 split between technology and the telecom, media, and entertainment, or TME sectors. And we did recently just close the survey for our 2024 report, but would encourage everyone on this call in the future not only to sign up to receive our 2024 report, but also be a part of the survey for 2025 and going forward as well. So if we take a look at the next slide, this is how we identified what are the key challenges within these 10 trends for TMT companies specifically. And one thing we're seeing is TMT companies right now are really having to do more with less. And as a result, they're elevating how to best access, structure, empower, and lead their talent. So when we look at what TMT respondents prioritized out of the 10 trends, we looked at what they said was important and then what they believed their organization was ready to address. And with that, we identified the biggest readiness gap. The top 4 trends for TMT leaders that we're going to talk more about today are the ones with the highest readiness gap and the highest overall importance. That would be navigating the end of jobs that had the largest readiness gap, powering human impact with technology that had the highest importance score, unlocking the workforce ecosystem, and leading in a boundaryless world. So let's go ahead and dive in to what that means for TMT clients who, as you know, we've been contending with a lot of big, challenging macroeconomic circumstances, the slowdown in economic growth, which has disturbed consumer confidence and spending, rising interest rates and inflation, higher operational costs, supply chain and market disruptions is really squeezed profitability. We've seen a lot of companies that have had a loss in market capitalization, and TMT companies hired a lot during COVID boom times, during the Great Resignation, and since then have had to reduce headcount. And there have been layoffs throughout the industries, hiring freeze, and restructuring, with a lot of pressure to have to further cut costs and increase margins and revenue. And that has certainly had huge implications on how we look at talent and address talent issues overall. So let's start with a quick overview of each of the 4 trends that are most important to TMT before we jump into further detail. We'll start with navigating the end of jobs, which sounds a little bit ominous, right? But really it's about a skills-based approach to managing work and workers. And it enables work to be performed beyond formal job boundaries, strengthening worker autonomy and an organization's ability to adjust quickly to major changes, which is something we've all really learned about in the last, 3 or 4 years, right? 50% of TMT respondents are investing in upskilling and reskilling workers, but only 21% feel that they're effectively investing in platforms to match internal workers with internal opportunities that are outside of their core job description. The second one, powering human impact with technology. This is about new workplace technologies, which include generative AI, that are emerging, and they don't just change how human workers will work, but it also changes how it will help them improve. TMT respondents said that leveraging technology to create more opportunities for their employees to use capability, like creativity, will be the #1 most influential driver of outcomes in the future. Unlocking the workforce ecosystem. This is the third trend. 53% of TMT respondents said the top driver to use and optimize their workforce ecosystem is being able to find the necessary skills to meet their business needs. For TMT organizations, it can be hard to fill very distinct and discrete skill gaps while achieving more with fewer overall resources. So it's important to think of your overall workforce ecosystem as inclusive with different type of workers that are making different contributions in different ways. And that includes your contingent workforce, contractors, consultants, suppliers, etc. And last, leading in a boundaryless world. To thrive, leaders must evolve in tandem with their organizations and adopt a new set of fundamentals to mobilize workers and teams against new outcomes. Over the next 2 to 4 years, TMT respondents predict the biggest increase in the need for leaders to create a resilient workforce, that was 15%, and inspire and create belonging, 10%. So of these 4 trends, Abel will take us through which are of most interest specifically for the TME sector. Abel?
Thanks, Lauren. Next slide, please. So as I mentioned earlier, I spent most of my time in media and entertainment. And as such, I've had a front row seat over the last few months to some of the human capital and HR opportunities and challenges that's facing organizations in this industry. And just wanted to highlight some thoughts about and observations about what this all means. I think at the macro level, as Lauren said, in this world of media, entertainment, and telecommunications, we're experiencing this new wave of disruption, one that is far more faster, more transformative than ever before. One that's anchored sort of around the needs of all of us, the consumer, right? We are more digitally native than ever before. Content is rapidly evolving and expanding in unprecedented ways, with new categories merging and formats continuously evolving. I think these shifts in the era of consumer centricity are further driven by the rapid technological advancements like Gen AI. I think to thrive in this future, organizations are really going to have to be forced to change the very fundamentals that have worked so well for all of us in the past, but really no longer work for the moment. And I strongly believe that one of those fundamentals that will make organizations successful is uniquely human capital, right? Organizations need to build new leadership capabilities, create truly adaptable teams that enable agility, fresh thinking, prepare generations of workers with new skills, and an ecosystem to make all of this happen. For those, I think, that get this right, human capital will be that enduring source of competitive advantage. So what does getting it right mean? Well, take one of these trends here around navigating the end of jobs as an example, which, again, to emphasize, by no way means that jobs are going away. But what it absolutely means is that the types of jobs are shifting and the skills required of all of us are rapidly evolving, right? Look at Gen AI and its potential impact on work. New capabilities will need to be built, new skills will need to be acquired, like type fluency and the willingness to embrace emerging technologies, adopting creative and innovative mindsets, resilience, and the ability to embrace change positively. And I think cultivating strong storytelling and collaboration skills. One thing that I'm working on with a media company is standing up a tech academy, right? Helping its entire organization get more fluent around the technology that's shaping our world, right? Not everyone needs to know how to code. Not everyone needs to know the underlying language models that power AI. But what everyone does need to know is have some level of fluency in technology in order to drive their day-to-day work. So companies like that investing the money and the time to help upskill their people to be more tech fluent. From an HR standpoint, I think it means investing in more cutting-edge HR technology to enhance the workforce experience, developing data analytics to help make more actual data-driven decisions, and really building robust learning and development programs that helps orgs build future skills, reimagine the role of an HR business partner as a strategic advisor to leaders to help define that path forward. In recent examples, I've seen where as companies, as HR looks to sort of build its next iteration of people analytics, more willingness to look at how AI could power the data in more powerful ways. An HR business partner, I was talking to a group of HR VPs the other week, and they are in a really unique position to help guide the organizations through this, like HR in general, right? When you look at COVID and how fast and how agile HR was to lead organizations, you could apply some of the very same mindset and mentality to helping organizations sort of adapt to this new wave of disruption. So that's just one example around sort of how I think this plays out day to day on in a TME setting. Back to you, Lauren.
Thanks so much, Abel. Let's do a little bit of a deep dive into navigating the end of jobs on the next slide, please. Okay. We talked about how much the rapid pace of change within TMT and how companies are continuing to innovate and having to overcome some of the macroeconomic challenges, right? We have talked about how difficult it is to keep up with this rate of change and how challenging it can be to have the right skill set in place, even more so with some of the recent layoffs and hiring freezes. And so this was of critical importance to TMT survey respondents. Taking a skills-based approach to managing work and workers can help with company agility to enable work to be performed beyond formal. Companies are not ready for this change. 95% think matching skills, worker skills with organizational priorities is important, yet only 22% are ready to do so. TMT respondents, even more so than global respondents, said that investing in upskilling and reskilling is the most effective way to match workers with the work that needs to be done. And as Abel mentioned before, the biggest barrier is the rate of change. So how can TMT companies do this? How can they take a skills-based approach? Couple things that we've seen, 4 in particular. 1, define work based on the skills required. Start by considering your strategic objectives and outcomes, and then identify the work that needs to be done to achieve that, and then identify the skills specifically that need to be done to perform that work. Skills should be the primary focus, not jobs, and not a specific set of tasks or responsibilities. One way to approach this is by shifting from job architecture, which would be like detailed lists of static jobs based on competencies and hierarchy levels and careers, to skills architecture, which is where you would base it on a simplified set of fewer and broader roles, and then level based on type of work and skills. The second thing would be to collect and analyze data about worker skills. So looking at, say, skills assessments and using some of that data, skills inferencing, AI-powered analytics to inventory the list of skills from your existing workers, and then supplement this with more holistic data about workers' interests, values, work preferences, and more. Understanding these skills has the added benefit of enabling companies to look at their global talent footprint and develop a do we build it, do we buy it, or do we borrow it approach based on worker skill availability. That will help you ramp up and address some of those difficult skill gaps much more quickly, and can also enable companies to meet some of these quick needs at an even lower cost. It could also help to identify gaps and enable companies to work on future-proofing some of their skill sets for critical roles. Third, view and match workers with work based on their skills, not job titles. So instead of looking at your workers narrowly as job holders performing predefined tasks, view them holistically as unique individuals that have a portfolio of skills to offer, some that you probably even don't know that they have, and then match them with the work that aligns specifically with those skills, deploying as needed. And think about some of their interests, goals, and work preferences to help them maximize their personal contributions and growth. Right now, we're seeing a bit of a drop in employee engagement. And this is something that can really help with employee engagement, is giving workers a little bit more choice and autonomy on what they're going to work on. A leading practice for this would be implementing a talent marketplace. That would be like a digital platform, often automated, that can transparently and quickly match an organization's open opportunities to qualified employees based on their skills, experience, and interests. As I mentioned, that can help with employee engagement, also help reduce turnover and accelerate career journeys. And lastly, make decisions about workers based on skills. Make skills, not jobs, the focal point for all workforce practices throughout the talent lifecycle, from hiring to career and performance progression conversations, and performance management, as well as rewards. For example, when you're hiring, look at candidates based on their skills and capabilities instead of their degrees and certifications. So if I think about a couple examples of companies who have done this, one that comes to mind would be Google, who strives to balance skills and outcomes with their new performance management process. Googlers are encouraged to work with their managers to identify and document what their priorities should be in terms of their development areas and their specific learning opportunities based on these priorities in subsequent quarters as well. I also think about IBM. They've been shifting their focus from credential-based hiring to skills-based hiring. They remove the college requirement from 50% of their jobs. They offer apprenticeship opportunities in cloud, cybersecurity, and software development. They also offer a free digital learning program called IBM Skills Build, which allows current employees and candidates to help develop some on-demand skills while they're on the job. And they have an AI tool that helps to assess attributes of team members to predict whether or not that team's going to be successful based on the team formation. And each team member adds in their own skills, and then gaps in skill sets are evaluated and fitted accordingly. So that's a deep dive on navigating the end of jobs. If we jump to the next second important trend, powering human impact with technology. And we started to talk a little bit about AI, and we started to talk a little bit about how we can empower human impact in terms of skills, but it certainly goes much broader than that. New generative AI technology. I mean, that's the hot topic, right? ChatGPT, it's in all the recent headlines. How is that going to impact workers? Something that's been top of mind for so many companies right now, especially TMT companies leading the way in tech and communications. It was ranked important by 96% of TMT respondents, making it the #1 trend. And TMT respondents said that technology that focuses on human capabilities like creativity will be the most significant driver of outcomes in the next 2 to 4 years. So, but yet only 1/3 of TMT respondents felt that their organization was ready to address this. So what are some challenges on the horizon? TMT respondents are looking to overcome barriers to enable teams, humans, and technology to drive outcomes. Some of the hurdles they identified were infrastructure and technology, culture, and ways of working. Investing in the right infrastructure and shifting culture and ways of working to embrace these opportunities will pay off for both workers and organizations. And they feel that the biggest benefits, ones that we can certainly play up in the organization, will be worker engagement and increased financial performance, both of which are extra critical in our current environment right now. So what are some ways that leading TMT companies can put this into practice? Well, 3 specific ways would be: 1, utilizing technology that improves human performance. So technology alongside humans making work better together. This could be broadening the traditional view of technology as a replacement for workers, and instead looking at ways that technology can improve human performance, pushing them to learn new behaviors, nudging, correcting old behaviors, and helping to sharpen their skills. Some examples: VMware uses a market-focused version of ChatGPT to generate new marketing content. So it uses technology to draft everything from emails to campaigns to social media posts even. And that's freed up some of their workers and writers to do more research and focus on more strategic opportunities too. Microsoft is embedding Microsoft 365 Copilot into its Office applications like Excel and PowerPoint and Word, where AI can automatically generate graphs, build presentations, and draft documents. That helps save time for people too. I've also seen situations where you might be on a Zoom call and there is this this note-taking bot. It's like an actual attendee of the Zoom call, but its entire job is to take notes and publish a transcript of the conversation, which is incredibly helpful because taking verbatim notes is certainly a very, very time consuming, and nobody really loves to do that, right? Second would be using intervention and nudges to make humans better. So incorporating technology that helps humans improve on traits like creativity, teaming, and emotional intelligence, making them more effective, improving their performance while also increasing engagement. And third would be scaling insights for greater impact. So taking advantage of the data that is generated by technology human collaboration to glean insights at scale. That could be like there's an AI tool that helps to use AI to scan communication systems like Microsoft Office, Skype, and Gmail to detect the emotional state of the workforce. So it's looking for things like burnout and depression to help enable organizations to address some issues proactively. There's also a company called Eightfold that is an AI talent intelligence platform that leverages internal HR data in combination with large-scale public data sources, and then automatically matches candidates and workers with the right work and helps to connect people with upskilling and reskilling opportunities at the right time. We know that generative AI is all in the headlines and making a big splash, but don't forget there are many more traditional systems like CRMs and ERP systems, or even PLMs that help improve data and help improve insights, increasing efficiency and helping to improve ways of working. And investments in these big core systems can help enhance human performance, free up more time for people to focus on human traits like creating and make more informed data-driven decisions. And we see that a lot with some of the large system implementations that we do for some of our TMT clients, and how that not only changes how work is done. For example, an ERP system with month-end close can be a lot faster, but how companies can take some of that time back and use things to look at predictive analytics, better understand their financial reporting systems, and have real-time data, and truly make different strategic decisions at the C-suite level because of those changes in the CRM and ERP systems specifically. A couple examples from TMT clients. Amazon is building its own metaverse to help people pick up cloud computing skills a lot quicker. The company launched other training services in their metaverse to help employees advance their careers in cloud expertise. HP has developed a smart factory in Singapore using digitized, automated and AI processes to increase quality and productivity and decrease labor-intensive reactive processes. So they're using some of that to reskill and upskill their people to fill jobs that will be needed in the future. Next, let's dive into unlocking the workforce ecosystem. This is our third trend, unlocking the workforce ecosystem. And we talked about how many TMT companies have been trying to right-size their organization. So much hiring that went on during the pandemic, and then and attrition, finding and retaining talent has been a big challenge. 58% of technology decision makers that Deloitte surveyed reported that recruiting talent is a major challenge, and 48 said the same thing about retaining personnel. Now I know we're seeing we're seeing that change a little bit. Attrition is much lower, but still looking at your overall contingent workforce, can help with spend, which is a big issue right now for companies as well. And there are still sectors that are really struggling with specific skill needs. Like semiconductor is an example of that. There's a race to localize semiconductor manufacturing, and to bring some of that onshore back to the US, which is really exacerbating the skill shortage, as one example. Worker agency continues to be something that's on the rise. Generational preferences shifting, where work is done. Is it in the office? Is it remote? Is it hybrid? Tech helps enable people to work more flexibly, and companies need to be increasing more agile. So looking at unlocking the full workforce ecosystem is increasingly important. 100% of TMT organizations agreed that external workers are going to become a much bigger part of the workforce in the next 5 years. And the workforce ecosystem is about looking at those external workers, understanding who they are. Some companies are not even quite sure of all their external workers, and then incorporating them as part of your broader, not exactly employee, but your broader population that are having direct impact into your bottom line, customers, vendors, etc. There's certainly big challenges with this. The 3 biggest barriers TMT respondents said that they're encountering are: 1, rate of change. We're seeing that in a lot of the trends right now, much higher for TMT in companies and industries than across the average. Rapid growth within TMT, talent shortages. So many people brought in temporary workers as band-aids, which impacted efficiency and productivity. The rising proportion of contingent workers also introduces a lot of complexities around siloed management and shifting organizational dynamics, specifically for HR leaders, also for procurement and business unit leaders as well. And that TMT companies are having to make substantial shifts to their workforce model now as they're facing hiring freezes and layoffs. Another big challenge has been incentives and rewards. And this can apply from 2 lenses. It can be that companies need to have the right incentives in place to encourage desired behaviors from those participating in workforce planning and hiring decisions. It can also be that companies need to properly incentivize and reward performance based on the unique needs of different segments of the workforce. And culture is also a challenge. As organizations increase their reliance on external contributors, there can be challenges around maintaining a company's corporate culture. During a recent Deloitte crowdsourcing session with TMT leaders, we found that 67% of organizations are concerned with how to maintain culture between contingent workers and full-time employees, sharing that we need to do more to help external workers understand our corporate culture and values. For customer-facing organizations in particular, external workers are perceived by customers to be part of the brand, making it more important for every person representing the organization that they're aligned with cultural norms and company values. So investing in these efforts is worthwhile. To counteract some of these challenges, TMT respondents have focused on reframing their employee experience and their strategy to include the extended workforce, revising their operating model to account for their extended workforce, and adjusting their management practices to account for the extended workforce as well. Benefits that they've seen are increased financial performance, innovation, and retention. So what are some leading practices that companies can do? 1, they can define their workforce ecosystem strategy. They can think about their entire pool of current and future workers as one boundaryless ecosystem. They can look to treat all workers as valuable, and they can factor in non-traditional workers into their workforce strategies and plans, integrating them into their company's organizational culture. They can define a specific strategy about how and where they will build, buy, and borrow talent to have the right skills in place to meet overall business objectives. Second, they can define a centralized cross-functional operating model with processes and ownerships to manage that full workforce ecosystem. It's important to make sure that you're shifting away from some of the command and control management and looking at cross-functional alignment and integration to effectively access, engage, and then manage and develop external workers. They can determine a sourcing strategy, looking at supply and demand analysis and capabilities so that they can effectively target and access preferred talent types. They can make sure that they have all the technology capabilities to support their full workforce ecosystem, and also match risk exposure based on your preferred tolerance level and geographic implications, because there are certainly different implications around contingent workers for different countries. A couple examples. One is at Cisco. Cisco recently embarked on an enterprise-wide initiative to create and execute a contingent workforce strategy aimed at making sure that those workers are organized in a more structured, organized, and consistent way, overcoming some silos and challenges that they were facing. They had a cross-functional steering committee that met monthly to provide guidance and oversight for finance, HR, IT, and operations just below the C-suite. They looked at changing their technology systems. So instead of modifying some of their existing IT systems, they were working with new vendors to tailor the needs of the changing environment. And they emphasized values, culture, and diversity, mental health issues, equitable compensation, and the inclusion of certain corporate activities for the contingent workforce. There was also two large media companies that were going through a merger. And as part of that merger, they had to look at the shift to their workforce ecosystem to bring those two organizations and businesses together. Oftentimes with mergers and workforce integration, you only consider employees, or you consider employees first, but these two media companies intentionally looked at their whole workforce ecosystem first, rather than just in traditional employees, because there were so many people that were involved at the time too. All right, last but certainly not least, let's jump to our fourth and final trend, which is around leadership and leading in a boundaryless world. We've discussed things that are changing very rapidly within TMT and all the macroeconomic challenges that continue to be an issue. Leaders are a key way to help empower workers, adopt these workforce ecosystem practices, and leaders have had to shift their ways of operating as well. Gone are the days where leadership is about position and formal authority and hierarchy. Today's successful leaders help to mobilize workers and inspire them to get work done, regardless of who the workers are or where they are too. And this can take increased empathy, vulnerability, and a willingness to experiment than ever before. 95% of TMT respondents believe it's important to be able to lead in this new boundaryless world, and only 23% believe their leaders are ready to be able to do so. Some areas are more challenging than others. TMT leaders are less ready than leaders globally to address industries to lead through environmental, social, and governance challenges, with only 15% saying their leaders are ready. They're also they feel less ready to lead through DEI challenges, with only 18% saying that their leaders are very ready. Effective leadership in both of these areas will be critical, especially as TMT companies are trying to very transparently prove their ESG and DEI outcomes with workers, consumers, and government agencies holding them accountable. What are some of the greatest barriers to effective leadership? Some of the top 3 factors that we saw are too many changes at once. Again, that's a common theme across all of the trends that we're seeing. Lacking the required capabilities and lacking clarity around roles and accountabilities. So what are a few best practices that TMT leaders can employ? Number one is thinking like a researcher. A new measure of successful leaders is the shift from managing jobs and finding a solution to orchestrating outcomes and creating an environment for employees to experiment. Two would be co-creating the relationship. This is not a challenge to hierarchical authority. Co-creating is the opportunity for leaders to tap into the abundant knowledge within their organization's workers and intentionally build stronger relationships and help encourage employee engagement and participation too. One way to enable co-creation is to put forums in place for employees to raise ideas and feedback. So for example, Google conducts an annual survey to surface employee issues and then addresses groups to address those issues that arise most frequently. Another way is to promote teaming behaviors through a team-based approach for performance management. For example, mission-based organizations involve leaders and they express their strategic goals as a portfolio of prioritized outcomes. And then employees work together in multidisciplinary teams to deliver these outcomes. Next would be prioritizing human outcomes. So leaders need to put humans at the center of everything they do. A leader's success is no longer about financial metrics, but also about how they design outcomes that benefit both the organization and the humans and their employees, as well as broader society. So for example, there was a TMT company who was preparing to undergo a transformation and brought their leaders together to provide agile coaching and discuss what it means to lead through a change, transformational leadership. This enables their leaders to help put their employees at the forefront rather than just focusing on the cost benefits of enacting the change. Another example where a company was helping to make sure that employees could provide upwards feedback would be Netflix. They implement 360-degree feedback, allowing employees to help put helpful perspectives for each of their managers and provide them with anonymous feedback. Another leading practice is underlying trust issues. Research shows that trusting employers are 260% more motivated to work, have 41% lower rates of absenteeism, and 50% less likely for people to be looking for another job. One publicly available example would be Netflix. Netflix is adopting a flat hierarchy, where each of their organizational teams all report into the CEO, but within those teams, people work cross-functionally and are encouraged to experiment and bring new ideas. And this could be teams like with legal, talent, finance, product, content, communication. With this flatter corporate structure, Netflix is able to rapidly make decisions and respond to changes in the online entertainment market much, much faster. Also, Netflix is internally able to address operational concerns and make changes to their management methods that are inefficient. So I know that we've covered quite a lot with these 4 trends. If you are interested in learning more, you can visit our 2023 Global Human Capital Trends Report, which if we skip a few slides ahead, there's a QR code that will show one more, there you go. There's a QR code right there that will help. You can go and read Deloitte's 2023 Human Capital Trends Report in its entirety. We also have a book fully dedicated to the workforce ecosystems trend, and it's available right there. So yeah, please check that out so you can learn more. And then we would be happy to address any Q&A, any questions that people have.
All right. Thanks, Lauren, for that. Let's see. Any questions in the chat? Let me take a look. Oh, I see. Are you sharing this deck with participants? For the C2HR team, I think this is recorded, right? It will be posted for everyone to access.
Yes, it will be posted. An email will go out later with the entire session.
Got it. Okay. Let's see, any other questions? Given that cost pressures have everyone doing more with less headcount, how can companies preserve their culture and employee morale? Lauren, any thoughts you wanted to share about that?
Yeah, we talked a little bit about opportunities for employee engagement and some of the examples that I gave. Flattening hierarchy, allowing employees to be co-creating in some of the solutions, designing programs with an employee-centric approach, having opportunities for employees to upskill, and some of those can be it really don't cost that much money. There are just so many platforms out there that allow for upskilling, designing jobs with more of a skills-based approach and allowing employees to opt in to some of those jobs that they want to do based specifically on their interests and their skill set. What I'm saying here, some of the common themes are around employees having agency in terms of the type of work that they do, employees helping to co-design and co-create the solution and not being an afterthought. And also things around sustainability and DEI are really important to employees as well. So be sure that you're socializing and marketing some of the programs that you have available, because they create a lot of employee engagement and also pride in the workforce too. Abel, anything that you would add?
I think the other thing I would add is just trust and transparency. I think it's important. I think with just so much disruption happening, so much things are moving so fast. I think we would fault ourselves if leaders spend too much time in the ivory tower trying to frame the right answer, the right approach. I think taking the tack of being more transparent, creating more trust, I think will help enable your workers, your workforce, to be more engaged. I think that's especially important now more than ever.
I agree. Looking at the question too, there's a comment around doing more with less headcount. And I do want to just address the fact that if your workers are burnt out and they have way too much work to do, no DEI initiative or employee engagement initiative is going to be able to help prevent that too. In the long term, there are a lot of companies who are implementing technology systems that help remove some of the mundane tasks that leaders will do and free up employees will do and free up some of their time. Those can take like 2 to 3 years too, though. So I would also help engage employees in unearthing what tasks they do that could just be eliminated or reprioritized, because sometimes the issue is there's just too much work and you need to make sure that that what workers are spending their time on is like the most mission critical tasks as well.
Let's see, Lauren, I'm going to turn this to you. Then another question was, skills can be extremely most disruptive to long-term business strategy. How do HR leaders leverage a skill-based approach to source and maintain the right skills to deliver on current and future objectives? What are some examples of HR leaders leveraging a skills-based approach? I know you talked a lot about it, but any additional insights you want to add?
I think that there's an opportunity for technology in some of the skills-based approach work as well. So how can companies specifically help to identify some of the worker skills, analyze with like skills assessment, analyze those worker skills, and then match opportunities with skills? So there's a bit of reframing within HR, but there's also some upfront cost in terms of setting up the right technology to identify skills and match workers with skills currently as well. That would be a good place to start.
Right. I think the SHRM yeah, we're going to put it up at the conclusion of this webinar. Any other questions? If not, I know we're almost at time. Okay, well, let's go to the next slide, Annie, and I'll turn it back to the C2HR team.
Well, I want to thank Abel and Lauren and Annie for their time in putting this HR learning series together and for sharing all the information. I mean, it's quite a bit of content, so we can see how much work you all do in putting the survey together and really looking at what we all have to look forward to in the future in terms of skills and just the forever changing landscape. So thank you all so much for sharing your insight. Everyone, here is the code, and we will be sending or recording the video and the code to those of you who registered for today's HR learning series. So thank you all for joining us, and have a great rest of your day.